Chapter 1. The Sea Witch. It had been many years since Ursula had seen her dear friends the sister witches. Not since right after her exile from Triton's court had she paid them a visit. There was so much to catch up on, as she made her way, she saw light dancing across the rippling water and knew was at last reaching the surface. She could almost make out the shadowy images of the three sisters standing on the shore, waiting for her arrival. It has been a rather long time, she thought, and decided she might as well make a grand entrance with a great spectacle. She felt herself growing, her tentacles elongating, a sensation that always made her feel like the dominant force of the seas that she was. I haven't felt this power within me for ages. She'd taken down massive ships in that form, splintering them, casting their remains deep into her dark, foreboding realm. She saw the looks of astonishment in the odd sister's bulging eyes as she rose out of the water to towering heights. The trio of sister witches, Lucinda, Ruby, and Martha, looked small, standing on the wet, black rocks and shivering in the cold. Ursula thought the sisters possessed a grotesque beauty, with their two large eyes, tiny mouths, and pale, haunting faces that were framed far too perfectly by their raven ringlets. She found them beautiful, even if the mists clinging to the feathers in their hair made them look like frightened, soggy, flightless birds. One wouldn't know it by their frightened state, Ursula mused, but those witches were the things of legends. They were cousins to the old king, the father of the queen called Snow White, and they were great benefactors to the Dark Fairy and her sleeping princess. Though Ursula would never say so aloud, she owed her newly regained power to the Odd Sisters. They had returned her necklace, although she considered it was a fair exchange for something their little sister had desperately wanted. Lucinda gasped as water spilled from Ursula's massive form onto the witches' awestruck faces, their ears splitting with Ursula's thunderous laughter and booming voice. "I'm so happy to see you, sisters. It's been far too long." The sea witch leaned down to be at eye level with the odd sisters. They were really quite striking, she thought, but too much beauty without the proper proportions. Ursula's arms were outstretched, ready to embrace them. The sisters scuttled tentatively as one into Ursula's embrace, which eased their concern and relaxed them with the fact that Ursula was not cross with them. "I see you are wearing our gift," said the sisters in unison, spotting the golden seashell necklace around her neck. All were worried Ursula would be enraged if she ever learned it had been stashed away in their pantry, half forgotten all that time. Ursula laughed, this time at the sound of the sisters' scratchy voices and at the state of the drooping feathers in their pitch-black hair. "Thank you, my dear friends. You will have to tell me how you got it back from my brother at some point. Or was it Circe? I didn't ask her when she brought it to me. And where is Circe? I'm surprised she isn't with you." Circe. The mention of her name was like knives being plunged into the odd sisters' hearts. She had been a source of heartbreak for them, the reason Lucinda had called on Ursula for help. Circe was the reason the odd sisters cried endlessly, vainly crying her name into the darkness, hoping she would at last return an account of their pleas for forgiveness. Circe hadn't answered her sister's calls, so they summoned the sea witch for help. Of course, Ursula would want something in return. She always did. She was the maker of deals. Lucinda spoke first. "Circe, our beloved, has gone far from us." Her deep red satin gown was stained with tears, and like her sisters, her eyes were smudged with black coal makeup that had streamed down her cheeks from long hours of crying. "She's so angry with us. She's ventured where our magic cannot follow," continued Ruby. Martha's sobs were almost too violent for her to speak. That's why we've come to you, Ursula. We want to see our little sister again. Ursula asked the obvious question. Have you tried to summon her, dears? In one of your many enchanted mirrors? The sisters broke down crying again. She must have done a spell when she left that keeps us from summoning her. Martha's sad, bulging eyes, which were so much like her sister's, were filled with grief and fear. Ursula could tell they were truly afraid. She couldn't recall ever seeing her friends in such a state, so full of regret and so grief-stricken. I promise you, Martha, I will help you find Circe. I promise each of you, my dearies. You will see your little sister again. Then Ursula smiled one of her magnificent grins, which slowly transformed into something a bit more mundane as she used her magic to assume human form and took the sobbing Martha into her arms. She knew the sisters would give anything to see Circe again, and as much as she wanted to help them, and of course she would be happy to do so, she just so happened to be in need of the Oz sisters' special brand of magic in return for her favor.